We're back again with me, Helen Dewdney, the complaining cow on the Consumer Show. And today I have Brad Burton with me, and he's going to be best to introduce himself as he has got lots and lots and lots of stuff to say. So Brad, I know all about you, but my listeners don't. So tell me all about you and what you do.
So which Brad do you want? Do you want the guy who dad left when I was 6 months old, left school with no qualifications, ended up doing 4 years on benefits, 2 years addicted to drugs, and got shot at when he was 21 and delivered pizzas at 31? Or would you prefer the Brad Burton, the 4-time best-selling author, the founder of Network Central, and the UK's #1 motivational business speaker? Two sides of the exact same coin. Which one do you want?
I think we'll have both, because to me, that's Brad all round, because obviously your beginnings have shaped how you developed. So obviously this is a consumer show, so we're talking to consumers, but also businesses and what they can learn. So tell me a little bit about that journey, about how you transferred from the first Brad to the second.
But, if you think about it, Helen, if I go back far enough to anyone, including yourself, I'll find something questionable. Fact, right? And in fact, you can go back in anyone's life far enough, you'll find something questionable. And actually, I realised something, that when you play blackjack, an ace can be a 1 or it can be an 11. And for so many, many years, I was using that ace as a 1. And it wasn't until I realised that actually I can use all those seemingly negative things as a positive. And that's what I've done, because I wouldn't be much of a motivational speaker if I'd not done all those kind of things. So I wouldn't change a single thing about my life. And when I said before about getting shot at, that's exactly what happened. I got shot at when I was 21 years old. And then you might gather from my voice, I'm not from Somerset. However, I live in Somerset. And that's as a direct result of that decision that, I got shot at, and I ended up moving away to Somerset, which is fabulous, because the worst day of my life, if I'd not done that, if I've not moved away, I wouldn't be here now, wouldn't be speaking to you, wouldn't have met my wife, wouldn't have started a business, wouldn't have written 4 books, wouldn't inspire people from around the globe. So, everything happens for a reason, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for that reason to make a sense.
So tell me about the business that you set up.
So my business that I started back in 2004 was a marketing business. I actually walked out of a job on December the 16th, 2004, told my employer to shove the job up the backside. And it was a wonderfully liberating experience. It really was, for those 3 hours whilst I drove home. I am married, and I've arrived home, and the wife says, "You're home early. You're here to look after baby Ben while I go shopping." That's one way to look at it, Kerry. The other way is I've told my employer to shove the job up the backside. My supportive wife said, "You're an effing idiot. Why couldn't you keep your mouth shut for 5 days and get your Christmas pay?" She had a point. So I started my own business off, and I thought, how difficult can it be? Started my business off, £25,000 in debt. It was a marketing business. And after about a year, I realised that there was something called networking, which effectively is how small business owners meet other small business owners to network. And everything that was out there in the field, in political terms, you had the loony left, just like Chablis and Volivants, and talking to the local mayor about parking provision at the shopping centre. And then you had the hard right, where's your leads? Where's your referrals? You have to attend. And I thought, well, where was the mainstream of networking? It never existed. And I started a business, networking business off called For Networking back in 2006. And I based it on New Labour in 1997. I kind of, looked at what New Labour did, which was made the establishment look old-fashioned and fuddy-duddy. And I did it, and I started one group. And before you know it, up until COVID, that business was running 65,000 meetings. We've done 65,000 networking meetings across the UK, and we was running about 5,000 networking meetings each and every year, real life meetings up and down the country.
So where are we sort of now? How did you find, the last couple of years for yourself, but also small businesses?
Oh, it's been tough, beyond all illusions. Been tough, but I had my own recession before I even started my business off. So when you're used to that, then you can deal with anything. And I think that's one of the great things about anyone's background, is you need to kind of work out what from your background you can leave behind and what you should take forward. And I think one of the things I took forward from that first version of Brad is resilience. So March the 15th, 2020, my business all in was probably around £2 million turnover a year. March the 16th, Boris Johnson says, please stay at home, and guess what? That business went to zero overnight. And actually, if I said to you, Helen, how long you believed that kind of pandemic was going to be, what would you have said?
I don't know if it was what you think and what you hoped, but I think we all hoped it would be 3 to 6 months.
Correct. And that's exactly what we did. And the murmurings from the government was it's 12 weeks. As of today, it is 823 days since Boris Johnson said, please stay at home. So, you just said then 3 to 6 months, that would have been 90 days or 180 days. We're at 823 or whatever it is today. So, this has been one of those ones that if you imagine being a boxer and you prepare for a 12-round fight, then at the end of that 12 rounds, the ref says, you're going to have to go for another round. It's still 3 minutes, but you're tired. Round 13, you're tired. And round 14, you're tired. And round 15, you're tired. And you get the point. And that's what it's been like for a lot of small businesses over the last 2 years.
I know that you've supported small businesses hugely. What was the main kind of support you felt that they needed or they were asking for?
They needed hope. They needed hope. And people needed hope that there was a way through this thing. And the problem is with the hope is that, after 3 to 6 months, that hope's dissipated, and everything that, if it would have been a 3 to 6 months short-term skirmish for the sake of this conversation, everyone would have got through, but it wasn't. And I think what's happened, I think it's effectively the biggest threat to any business and business owner is one in terms of culture, in terms of identity, and in terms of hope. That actually somewhere along the way, it's like a colander. So if you imagine and go back down to, running a marathon, the first mile is a mile long, the last mile is a mile long, but the last mile is a whole lot more difficult. And I think that what's happened is a lot of hope has been dissipated from people. And actually people that I'm seeing out in the field, they're going, why am I bothering here? And if you look at the way that culturally what's going on now, people working from home, the lines between work-life balance has just been blurred beyond, anything that's gone before. So it's almost like having Vimto, and you put it in water and then shake it all up and you try to separate the Vimto and water. It's done. It's all one thing now. And I think this is going to be quite problematic. If we don't see it now, we're going to be seeing it real soon.
So what would your advice be for small businesses at the moment?
Get your costs down. Recognise that it's still in flux. And I think that if you imagine a snow globe, that's what's happened. The snow globe has been shaken and it's still not quite settled yet. And I don't think there's no kind of foundations right now that you can sensibly build on. So if you imagine, again, boxer metaphor, you've not got your laces tied up, or you do boxing on a trampoline, I think that's where it is. There's lots of unknowns right now. And recognise these unknowns and accept that there's unknowns and accept that it's not going to be as clear cut as it once was.
I mean, we're seeing obviously, huge problems. So do you think there is light at the end of the tunnel?
I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, but it's a different world. It's a different world. So I think, of course, there's always going to be opportunities, always. But I do believe that what people need to do is they need to pick their shots right now. They need to make certain that they don't just go running around and burning that energy out. And it's about picking shots. So for me, I've got several new businesses as a result of this lockdown, which is crazy. And one of the things I always say is, what does this make possible? Whatever pops off in your life or your world, no matter how difficult it is, what does it make possible? If I think where we started, me getting shot at in 1995, what it made possible was for a fresh start. But I didn't see it at the time. I was annoyed. I was upset. And actually, I wanted to go back to a place that no longer existed, back to life before that. And I see so many people wanting to go back to life before this pandemic.
Which is not going to happen by
No,
any stretch of the imagination. I mean, when at the beginning of the pandemic, we were seeing obviously a lot of people, and the word pivot was used a lot, wasn't it? I'm pivoting and I'm changing business and I'm going to do this. How have you seen businesses do that? Have they done that generally with success, or is it been mixed bag?
So I think, certainly for us, we was the first networking organisation to take our network online. So we did it within 72 hours. So I played enough computer games in my time to know that without a vaccine back then, that this thing was going to get to us. So I think from a pivot perspective, people have pivoted to a point where they've lost their identity. They don't know who and what they are. Remember that I said the biggest threat that we've got right now for business is losing culture. Lose culture, you lose identity. That's the problem. So people like, you imagine Virgin Atlantic. If Virgin Atlantic lost its culture, it would just be another airline. So that's the thing that I think that people need to be focused on right now, is finding their identity, finding their culture, or refinding their identity, refinding the culture, and then they can refine the business. I think a lot of people are trying to find the business without the culture, without the identity. And I think that's where it's going to become problematic.
Talk about the people that have sort of pivoted. Do you think people still are doing that, or do you think that has decreased now?
Oh, I think we've got a normality right now, or some sort of normal. What we've got right now, this craziness that we've got in the world, is normal for the foreseeable future. I think we need to go with it. It's a bit like being on a waltzer and you're spinning around one way and you're spinning around another way. You can scream all you want, but you're on the roller coaster ride, so you might as well enjoy it. And that's where I'm at.
For the sort of consumers out there who want to support the small business, what advice would you have for them? You know, that actually we can't use their small business because, you know, the big old plant over there is going to be cheaper. How do we support small businesses while still coping with a cost of living crisis?
Listen, and this is the problem. And this is the problem. You can't go left and right at the same time. See, I think, and this is where, you know, I had a conversation of thinking before about it. And I think that for me, you know, I've always been about community. If you think about this like a episode of The Walking Dead, with the zombies out there and marauding, and you've got these little compounds with safety and everything's irrigation in there and vegetables. And I think that's what we've got to start seeing, that the village mentality needs to return. And actually that we as a collective have got more chance of getting through this than in isolation and going out there. And I think that's what we've got to start doing. We've got to start bringing that village mentality of the 60s and 70s. We've got to start bringing that to business and start banding together to get through this, because let's be quite clear, there is no cavalry. The government ain't going to fix your business or your life. They're not. They've got their own things going on and their own priorities. And you are not a priority. And you need to be your own priority in your own life. Get your own life sorted first, and then you can start helping other people. That's my view. When
at the beginning of the pandemic, we were seeing people trying to support, you know, their local businesses and, you know, shop locally and all that. Do you think that has continued, or that people are going, actually, no, it's all about cost now?
I don't know. You know, in my business, I've got like 4 businesses. Like some are doing okay, some are doing great, some are not doing so good. That's how it is. You've got to diversify. And this is the thing, we don't know. None of us know where this is going to end up. It's a bit like trying to predict where the roulette ball lands. Nobody knows. And no amount of previous experience would have allowed that. I've spoken in public for the last 6 months, and I must have addressed 5,000 people, let's say. And I've asked the question, did anyone have on their business plan a global pandemic? And in all those times, of those 5,000, I've had one person that put their hand up and said yes. Okay, great. And how did that serve you then, having it on your business plan and a bullet point says pandemic? You know, nobody could prepare you for what we've seen in this world. And I think that this is the bit that we all need to recognise, that this is still in flux. And that is why, from my perspective, I am happy accepting it's full of flux. Is when you try resist that change, that you need to, you know, bend with the world rather than trying to get the world to bend with you.
I mean, I've spoken to you about this before, but we can talk about it a little bit more than I could restricted to in the paper. But when, you know, consumers are trying to support businesses, but, you know, we're trying to encourage people to haggle, what would your advice be about haggling with small businesses? Recognise this, it's only a saving if you get what you want. And this is the problem that people have got right now in business. If, as a speaker, let's say, somebody wants to haggle with me, I've got a date already booked in, or somebody's approached me, you're not going to get a deal from me. You're just not going to get a deal from me. And also, you're going to lose a little bit of goodwill away from that, if I'm honest. Because when I give a price, I give a fair price that is not intended to, you know, any discount or any. If I go into a newsagent and I go and buy a Mars bar and a newspaper, I'm not haggling. So somewhere along the way, we kind of believe that we can haggle with business. Why do we believe that? So what I would say is, you know, if you want to say, hey, guess what? I want to book you for, say, this conversation as a motivational speaker for a keynote, but we'd also be interested in you doing a workshop or you teaching our staff. Okay, then we can do a deal. But I think coming up to somebody and actually trying to change their price point, yeah, some people can do it, and that's how it is. But for me, it kind of ebbs away a bit of goodwill. I think personally, that's my view. Yeah, I mean, on that note, you and I have sort of spoken sort of at large, many people, about the people that expect things for free. And it's like, well, you wouldn't expect your plumber to come and fix your toilet for free. You wouldn't expect to go into Sainsbury's and just say, oh, I'm going to take these grapes for free, or nick this pint of milk. Do you think that's growing? I seem to see that as a growing thing in lots of groups that I'm in. People are talking about, oh, can I just pick your brains? Can I just ask you this? But actually, it's your job. And if you did that all the time, you wouldn't earn any money. And people don't seem to appreciate that. So I've got something, a blog that says, hello, mate. When somebody rings me up and says, hello, Brad, I really like your stuff. I wonder if I could just pick your brains. And actually,
the reason people want to pick my brains isn't because my boyish good looks. They want to do that because you've got the answers. And actually, that's my business. My business is providing answers, whether it's professional speaking, whether it's my Life Maker course, whatever. My business is providing answers. And the reason that people come to me is because the best way through a minefield is by following someone who's got through a minefield. And if they don't want to pay for that, that's okay. Like, genuinely, go and read my books, because everything that you're going to ask me is in my books. Oh, well, I don't have time to read. Okay, well, I don't have time to have this conversation. So I am, and that's not me being rude. What that is, that's me having 16 years of running a single business. I'll give you a statistic. 94% of businesses fail in the first decade. 94% of businesses fail in the first decade. I've been going for 16 years. There's a reason for that. Is because it is about charging what you're worth. Oh, don't get me wrong. Good God. I'm not mercenary in that respect, but there comes a point when I will answer one question and somebody asks the second question and say, look, this is the point when we start paying. Oh, well, I can't really afford it. I'm sorry about that. In which case, go read the book or go onto Spotify, because my books are on there for free. And this is what, there's no shortcuts. People, if you think about being at the top of a stair, people want to get there. How can you get to the top? Can you jump? No, but you can. You bruise your knees on stair 3 and 4. It's going to take time. And that's what people are trying to avoid, time.
Yeah, I think we're sort of seeing that with people I see that when people go, can I just pick your brains on this? Can you just tell me this? Can you just tell me that? Actually, it's there for free on my blog.
Right.
And I sort of seem to see an increase in that. And I don't know if that's because, my profile's getting higher and I get more, but are you seeing that more or just same as 2 years ago?
Away. So what happens, anyone pings me, can we pick your brain? I just send them a link. To the website that's got a hello, mate. You're probably reading this now because somewhere along the way you've reached out to me to ask a question about pick my brain, have a coffee, bosh. So by doing that, and the reason I wrote that blog was because I was constantly getting pinged.
Are you seeing more of that than you were 2 years ago?
No,
are you seeing that in other businesses or just the same?
I'm not exactly the same. If anything, less. I don't know why that is.
Right.
I think maybe because people realize that I'm not that guy. So I don't know, but I've seen less of it personally.
It's an interesting one because I sort of seem to see it more in groups. I think maybe it's people at the beginning of their journey who are not used to now going, do you know what? I need to value my time here. Yeah. But I do wonder if there's a general feeling of people that they just want more for free now, because it's difficult. I don't know whether it's that or whether it's where people are in their journey.
Yeah, I think, when I came through the road, starting the business off, I would have asked the same, I'm sure. And I remember going to a networking meeting before I started my own networking meeting, and I put a business card in every single place setting. And that was why I learned how not to do it, right? So consequently, when I started my networking organization, what I did was I did the same. I said, you can't do that. So I said, look, like I say, it's one of those things that you've got to kind of get your fingers burnt for you to not get your fingers burnt.
Yeah. So just go through all of that. So Tom, what do you think is there for you over the next 5 years?
I'm 49 now. 49. When I first started my business off, I think I was 31, 32, 33, I can't remember. Right? I must have been 33. And actually, I was living in a masonette above a chipper and didn't have any money. And I kind of was determined to change the fortunes of my family. I was determined to change the way that business networking was done. I've ticked both those boxes. I've achieved more than I could ever anticipate. 4 books. I've had the flash car. I've gone on amazing holidays. I've made a massive impact. I've made a massive difference. I'm okay. So if I never achieved anything more from this moment, I'd be okay. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not driven, doesn't mean I'm not ambitious. But what it means is, and this is where people go wrong, they're always chasing the next thing: 40-inch television, 60-inch television, 80-inch television, 100-inch television, cinema screen. When does it end? And actually, we spend our entire lives chasing this thing that eludes so many people. And that thing is called contentment. And that's the thing that I've got over so many business owners that I know. Contentment. They might floss it off. They might pretend that they might have it on, wonderful. Here's a picture of me yacht. Here's a picture of my holiday homes. Here's a picture. But actually, deep down, they're lacking contentment. And that's something I've got. And that is what my focus in the remaining 5 years and remainder of my life is, to remain content. Because I realized something, that actually mountaineers don't stay at the top of mountains. They don't stay at the bottom. It's always in flux. But one of the things that's been consistent for me for many, many years is contentment. And that is the secret of success.
I think that's a very good note to nearly end on, because I think that leads me into, do you think you'll ever retire?
I did retire at 42. So I'm 49 now. I retired at 42. I had a management team and this, that, and the other. And after 3 months of going to the gym and playing my PlayStation, I thought, well, this is rubbish. I actually wrote a book called Now What, which was my last book. It was published in 2016. I've written a book for 6 years. I've got one actually, a work in progress. But that was it. I wrote Now What because I'd achieved every single goal in my life. And that was a bit, you said, well, this is a bit empty. So after 3 months, I unretired myself. So do I think I'll ever retire?
No.
I don't think so. And I think you'd be foolish to do so. But does that mean that you can have more fun and in your life? Absolutely. And that's what I would be doing right now. You know, whatever happens here and in, I have achieved so much for a working class lad. When we started this conversation today and we looked at my background, the model where I'm at right now, it should never have happened, yet it did. And it happened because of decisions. And that's what we all need to do. We need to recognize that where we end up in our life is a direct result of our decisions, not being locked in a coal shed by our dad. It's our decisions. And whatever's gone on in your life before, remember what I said, that everything happens for a reason. Remember also what I said, which is, what does this make possible? And the fact that you're listening to this interview with Helen and I means that somewhere along the way, every single decision that you've made in your entire life, every single decision that Helen's made in her entire life, and I've made in my entire life, has brought us here today. So for the last 40 minutes or whatever, I've been talking to you, and this is your opportunity to make a change to your life, make a change to your career, to your relationship, to your home, to your thinking. Because you change your thinking, we change your life.
Well, that's great. I am intrigued now, though, as to what your next book is that you said you've got one in the making. What's the book?
It's called Life Maker. And one of the things I've realised, I've kind of got more spiritual as I've got older, which is funny because you think of spiritual, you know, a guy from Salford, Manchester, you know, alpha male. And yet I am gone more spiritual and more introspective. And the book's called Life Maker. And really the biggest fight that any of us are ever going to have in our life is the fight about which version of you do you feel every single day. Because there's a negative version of you that's, you know, unhappy, that's angry. And then there's a positive, wonderfully benign Helen. And we've had the wonderfully benign Helen today. You know,
we've been very well behaved, I think, you and me.
Well, listen, I didn't want to give the Ian a headache too much with the beeping machine. But, you know, the reality is that this is what I've sussed. I have sussed something out. I've sussed something out that true success is about being you. Not a false version, not a pretend version for show, not for social media, but you. And that's where I'm at right now. And Life Maker is about everyone opening up that world for them to be the best. And I've run a program, a 10-week program about it as well. But I've sussed it out. I'm the most content person I know. Fact. Because somewhere along the way, I won this fight with myself. If you think about Brexit, 48, 52%. That's what goes on in people's lives. Every morning they wake up. Is it a negative version or is it a positive version? 48, 50, 52. And I reckon I'm now 95% positive, 5% negative. If you'd got me 20 years ago, it'd been 51, 49. And I've managed to move the pendulum, to move the needle to this kind of, you know, a motivational speaker. So how do you get yourself in a mindset where you're like that? Because I'll tell you something, this is more valuable than any other thing that you can learn in your life. Get yourself content, get yourself happy, then you get yourself successful. If you have success, speech mark, success, and you're unhappy and you're not being yourself, that isn't success. That's where you start getting problems. So if you think about somebody from Bradford winning the lottery, and then 3 years later they're skint and unhappy and overweight, or they die of a heart attack, that's a good example of that not being content. And for many, many years I had no content. I was discontented or discombobulated and no content. Now, honestly, I've genuinely sold together. It's scary.
Well, it's great to hear you talking like this, Brad. I mean, we've known each other for a long time. So it's I've seen part of the journey for the last 10, 15 years, whatever it was. So it's great to see you now. I need you now just to tell everybody where they can find you, what your books are, do the whole kit and caboodle.
No sweat. Listen, go and Google me, Brad Burton. You find me on Amazon, Brad Burton, Twitter, Brad Burton, Facebook, Brad Burton, Instagram, Brad Burton, Brad Burton, Brad Burton.
And of course, the site, if people wanted to join the networking, is
Network Central. So do check out my business, networkcentral.biz. If you have got a business and what you want to do is get that out there, get a word, meet other people, it is that, in my view, the most economical way to promote your business. And if you want a free visit, email pippa@bradburton.biz. She's been right on later.
And mention our show.
Please
And I am a member of there, so I can thoroughly recommend it. Well, thank you very much, Brad. You've been listening to Helen Dewdney, the Complaining Cow Consumer Show, where I've been talking to Brad Burton, #1 UK motivational speaker. And you can find out more about me and consumer rights and consumer issues at thecomplainingcow.co.uk. And you can find me on Twitter at Complaining Cow, Instagram at The Complaining Cow, Facebook at The Complaining Cow.
Helen, can I suggest they just Google The Complaining Cow?
They could just do that, and you will find me on lots and lots of pages on Google. And also you can get a 15% discount off my books, How to Complain, The Essential Consumer Guide to Getting Refunds, Redress and Results, and 101 Habits of an Effective Complainer. And ELR Cow will get you that 15% discount. And if you have any consumer issues that you would like me to look at and resolve, or any topical things that you would like me to discuss, or ideas for people to interview, then you can email me at helen@eastlondonradio.org.uk.